Welcome to the Bojack Podcast Horseman Obviously. This is episode number 2. My name is Dominic and I'm joined by Matthew.
Hello.
The purpose of this podcast is for me to convince Matthew that Bojack Horseman is the greatest animated TV show of all time. In this episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 2, Bojack Hates the Troops. Hello, Matthew. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good, thanks. You?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still trying to edit the last one.
We did talk a lot of nonsense that probably needs to be cut out, some irrelevant tangents.
Yes, we went off in a few tangents. But no, I think it'll be interesting overall to listen to, hopefully, and that's the aim of this. So, Matthew, do you want to summarise what happens in this episode for us?
Yeah, a quick summary. Bojack gets in trouble for taking a Navy SEAL's muffins. He gets into an unnecessary confrontation with a fellow shopper who turns out to be a Navy SEAL, who is actually a SEAL. And then he gets called out on it from a TV network, and it spirals out of control to the point where he goes on to a reality TV show to formally apologise to the SEAL.
I am going to start this off by saying I think this is the episode that hooked me.
Okay.
I have such a vivid memory of this episode.
Okay.
I would probably put this in my top 10 of episodes.
Okay. I will say that this episode I thought it was much stronger than the first episode.
Yes.
However, I will also say that I think this episode is more relevant now than it was when it first aired. I think a lot of the themes around this episode can be connected to the current climate that we're in of cancel culture and massive wokeism and kind of not the removal, but the lessening or the degradation of accepting free speech and open discourse and being able to express your opinion in a nuanced way.
Yeah, that is exactly what I thought. So maybe it is very obvious, but I think it's very appropriate. And I don't know of many other TV shows anywhere or at all in any other, even with real actors that are actively discussing things like this.
You need to watch more South Park.
Okay. You have mentioned a few episodes to me, and maybe I will start watching it. Maybe I've always had it on the list to watch, and maybe that will be next.
Obviously, I can't go back in time and watch it in 2014 when it aired, but I do think that I think those themes struck a chord with me now, given the climate that we live in.
I would suspect that what this episode is talking about would have been pretty much at the start of a lot of these sort of issues.
I think a lot of it would have been on the very fringes of society.
So people that we would be okay with cancelling, sort of.
The cancel culture that we live in now, I think, has spiraled rapidly over the course of the last handful of years. If I'm thinking back to 2014, then it wasn't really that as prevalent as it is now. So I don't know if this episode is foreshadowing what's to come, or whether it's just like a happy coincidence that this happens to be an episode about Bojack voicing an opinion and that opinion being taken way out of context and all nuance removed from it.
So this episode is written by Raphael Bob Waxberg, the creator again, and it's directed by J.C. Gonzalez. Starting at the beginning of the episode, we open up to Bojack drinking in a bar. There's a little visual joke of he's pouring the drink and he says when it's overflowing. But he gets recognised at the bar by a lady. She calls a friend up and she says, "You're never going to guess who's here. It's that horseman horsing around." And then all we hear her say is, he's got a little bit faster, but it's definitely him, which I just think it must hurt so much.
So she says something like, it's really sad to see as well.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So she's talking about when you can hear it. So Bojack gets a phone call from Princess Caroline, talking about their ghostwriter, making sure everything's okay. And I think this is actually where we start to see Princess Caroline really managing Bojack, like how much time she's putting into it.
Yeah, but also every time she calls him, she puts him on hold.
Yes,
even though she's called. And that jingle that she plays, I have no idea I can't tell what they're saying. I haven't looked into it. I'm not when I'm watching these episodes, I'm not googling anything. I'm just doing my own opinion, and that jingle plays 2 or 3 times throughout this episode.
It does.
And I have not got a clue what it's about, what it's in relation to or anything. So
I will tell you what it's about, Matthew, because in the run-up to this podcast, I was like, what is that song? I don't know. It sounds ridiculous. It's so out of place. I don't know what it is. It's from the theatre production Cats.
Okay.
And there's something called Jellicle's Cats. And they're like this type of cat that's in the show. And I think you'd completely miss it unless you were a fan of cats.
Okay. And she's a cat.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in the next phone call we get with Bojack later on in the episode, she calls him about what's happening on TV.
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh, yeah, okay, I'll speak to her. And then the assistant's like, oh, just wait a minute, I need to see if she's available.
Oh, yeah, she calls him. Yeah.
So she has to call the agent. So this is actually, I think there's a bit of an entertainment joke there again.
Yeah.
But what it does show, I think, which we see more of later, and it's not a spoiler, that she's a very good assistant.
Okay, yeah.
She's on it. She's the PA that everybody wants.
She seems like that.
Yeah, so she's just so in the zone, knows what to do. So she's a very good assistant, and there is some nice jokes there. Like in at this bit where they're at the bar, Bojack thinks it's Caroline calling, and he goes, "Don't put things up my butt if you get on the back."
Yeah.
So, which is it's a little joke, but it works because we were expecting it to be Princess Caroline on the phone. So Princess Caroline's made sure Bojack's okay for the ghostwriter that's coming round, and the woman who was on the phone earlier, all of her friends come into the bar, and they all start taking pictures of him and laughing and joking. And Bojack's obviously upset by this, so he goes to walk out. But when he walks out, he stops to confront these ladies.
He walks out and then comes back in.
Okay, yeah, so yeah.
He walks fully out of frame and then walks back into frame.
And this is him obviously deciding he's going to stand up for himself. He's going to say that, and he says, doesn't he, all I wanted to do was have a drink like a normal person. I wanted to go to a bar and have a drink and forget all the problems that I've got. And you've ruined I wanted you to know that you've ruined my night tonight. I do feel for Bojack here. When he's with people, he can't go anywhere without people taking pictures and now also joking and laughing at him. I think that's quite a sad place to be. And I think this is actually quite a change from the first episode, where the first emotion I have for Bojack is empathy. Or do you still think he's a dick?
I still think that
he's still strong.
He's brought it on himself.
Okay.
That I do understand the plight of people in the public space and having their privacy taken away from them. But I do understand that. Yeah. But
this is just a gang of girls making fun of someone.
Yes.
Regardless of whether he's been a famous person or whether he's got money or whether he's done something or has done something or hasn't done something. It is them just being mean and bullying a random person, essentially. Would we do that?
No, what they're doing is absolutely wrong. It's horrible the way they're treating him. But that doesn't change the fact that I still think he's a dick.
Okay.
So I would say that they're in the wrong, but my empathy for Bojack is very minimal.
Okay.
Because he's a dick.
Because of the episode we've just seen as well, then.
Yes, and the scene that's about to come up.
Okay. Okay. Well, he basically gets angrier and angrier at these girls, and there's a nice visual joke where he yells. She goes to interrupt him on this polite confrontation that he's on, and she says something, and it stops him in his tracks. And I like it when the chicken drops the egg on the floor because she's shocked.
I missed that.
Ah, that's a shame. So the argument escalates, and he gets quite angry when she starts trying to defend herself, basically. And he shouts, which causes the chicken that's there to lay the egg. And it's one of the visual gags that I quite like, that I like it. Okay. I don't need to say anything more about it. This argument escalates a lot to the point where Bojack says, again, a paraphrase, just because you're pretty, just because you've got friends, just as you think you can do all this. And at the end of this whole spiel, the girl goes, "So you think I'm pretty?" And that's the bit that stuck with her out of all the stuff that Bojack just said. And then they end up going back to Bojack's and having sex, and she stays the night.
I think this is just a foreshadowing for the whole episode.
Okay, yeah, that's one
of the main themes for the episode is that people only hear what they want to hear.
Right, yeah.
And that's exactly what she's done in this situation.
Yeah. No, that's a nice point that I've not actually thought about. So I'm glad you brought that up.
And like, I don't know, I like it. I heard this on a podcast recently about like trying to find the positives in every situation. So even when someone insults you, you can find some kind of positive from it. And like, even though he's being really negative towards her, she's picked out the only thing that she considers to be positive from his little tirade. So on one hand, yeah, she's only hearing what she wants to hear, but if it makes her feel good, then is there anything wrong with that?
So you're that's interesting. You're saying it's admirable.
I'm not saying it's admirable. I'm not saying it's admirable. I'm saying that depending on the way that you look at it,
yeah,
you could look at it as two ways. It could either be ignorant or it could be optimistic.
Yeah, no, I didn't think. I suppose I didn't think about that aspect of it at all.
But that's only because I've listened to this exact topic on a podcast literally last week. So
no, I was definitely thinking she's just an attractive person that is used to getting away with things, and almost in the same light as Bojack wanting attention for himself, she's had someone say, "Oh, you're quite attractive." So yeah, brilliant. No, I don't actually care about anything else.
I just think it's a little microcosm, a little moment of foreshadowing for the overall theme of the episode.
No, it is, yeah. And I'm like I say, I'm really happy you've pointed that out to me, actually, because that just makes the episode even better. Because one of my criticisms was going to be that I felt like this opening wasn't very strong. It's like you didn't even mention it in the synopsis of the episode.
No.
And I was like, why has he not mentioned the bar? I was like, that's like...
I've forgotten about it.
Yeah, but no, it is actually really important. It's also important for the transition back into Bojack's house.
Okay, I didn't enjoy this scene.
So this is the scene where everybody's turned up at Bojack's house in the morning.
Yeah.
And it starts off by, I don't think we've got a name for her, but this girl he met last night is
Pam, I think was her name. Yeah, because he asks her 3 or 4 times throughout this scene, and I didn't like that. It was just the same joke repeated over and over again, and it's like, come on, Bojack, you're not that stupid. He's an intelligent guy. You're not going to forget someone's name within a few seconds of asking her.
I think maybe she stayed the night just to reinforce that he sleeps around. I think that's the only reason that she actually said, because really from that last scene where she says, "Oh, you think I'm pretty," it could have just cut there. We could have never seen her again. It doesn't add a lot that he sleeps with her, apart from saying he just gets to sleep with people basically because he's famous.
I think it just highlights the shallow nature of both of them.
Yes.
That they've both been, like, earlier on she was talking about how it's really sad and like he's put on weight and he's like implying that he's a washed up celebrity.
Yeah.
Yet she's still willing to sleep with him either because he told her she was pretty or because he is a celebrity of any shape or form. and he's willing to sleep with her even though she apparently ruined his night and insulted him a lot. So without knowing the inner workings of these characters' minds, the only thing that I can infer is that they're both like looking for physical validation from each other.
Yeah, and I think it's basically showing how shallow they both are.
Yeah.
But she does also take one of the toaster strudels in the morning. We'll pretend we know what toaster strudel is.
I don't know what a toaster strudel is, but I really want toaster strudels. They sound amazing.
We'll pretend we know what they are. And
I hope they're apple flavour. They've got to be apple.
I think it's like a little apple pie.
Yeah.
Breakfast apple pie, which is quite nice, quite nice actually.
Yeah.
So she's got one of the toaster strudels, and then we see Diane. And Diane's also got one of the toaster strudels. And Bojack's questioning why she's there. And she goes, "Oh, you sent me this email. I love this email."
No, I didn't.
You did like it?
No.
Again,
Two on the nose.
The bit that I actually like is the little joke where he says, "Don't tell people I use horse tranquilizers. Mm-hmm. I just use a small dose to get me to sleep," which is what we sort of think of. A lot of people say, "Oh, I just have a drink to get me to sleep sometimes." But I like that he comes back and he says, "And then I have a much, much larger dose to get me through the day."
Yeah.
So that's the way
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And I appreciated the end when she says you just typed something. She says something like you just typed B over and over again. So much you fell asleep on the keyboard. I like that as well. It's the whole like tirade in the middle. This whole like mini exposition. Yeah, we know that he's lonely. We know that he has substance abuses. We don't need to like ram it down our throats.
But this is something that starts to come up a bit more.
Okay.
These messages and emails that he writes. So I think it might be more setting up jokes for the rest of the season as well, which we haven't completely got yet.
But she does reinforce with this email saying that the reason that she's reading this email is so that he told her to be there at 9 in the morning. And she's there at 9 in the morning. It's like, why are you here?
Yeah, it confirms.
That's his line for this scene. And why are you here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
Or what are you doing here? Which I don't know is a recurring theme in Bojack, because that was the line that he used in the party in the previous episode.
I'm gonna wait to talk about that.
Okay.
But I'm really happy you picked it up actually, because I think that's something that I missed going when I was at this point. So
and it escalates as well. The way that he asks, like with Diane, it's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like genuinely curious. With Pam, it's like, "And what are you doing here?" And then with Mr. Peanut Butter, it's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like the people that are in his environment are getting more and more unnecessary.
So something I think I can say about it is, again, this is something that is quite sitcom-esque.
Okay, yeah.
Where someone turns, like, it's that thing where they turn up at the door and, "Hang on, what's this celebrity?"
And the studio audience starts clapping and cheering.
So yeah, there is an episode where I think we'll talk about that more later. But, there's also a bit here where Diane sees Pam, the lady he picked up last night, and Bojack's definitely embarrassed about her being there. Yeah. Which I think, again, is partly like, "Oh, I don't want you to see the negative points in my life." But also, I think it's that thing where it's like, I'm sitting in the last podcast, I think he's attracted to her. Yeah. He's like, "I don't want you to know that I'm sleeping with other people. I want you to know that I'm available." And I think that's another point where he's like showing that he likes her. But then we find out Mr. Peanut Butter's also at Bojack's house, which really it seems like no reason at all, apart from he probably drove Diane over. But he's got this habit where he introduced it in this episode. He says, "Funny story, they're doing a reality show about me," and and Bojack points out, like, that's not a funny story. Like what he said wasn't.
No, he's when he's. I think what you're referring to is when he talks about the name of the show.
Okay.
And he says it's Peanut Butter and Jelly.
Yes.
This reality show is called Peanut Butter and Jelly, and Bojack's trying to explain to him that it only works with wordplay if there's jelly involved. And
that's the bit I was going to come up with next.
Okay.
But he does start with a funny story, I think, which is a bit weird. Like he has this habit of saying, Mr. Peanut Butter, I think we've seen it now, like he will say the phrases we all use, but in slightly the wrong place.
Okay.
And this is one of them where he says, funny story, and then says, it's about this reality show that he's starting to do.
Okay, maybe I missed that.
And for some reason he thinks it's the same as writing a book. So he's like, with Bojack, me and you are on the same, sort of doing the same thing now.
Okay.
But he mentions the name of his reality show, which is called Peanut Butter and Jelly.
Mm-hmm.
And Bojack's not happy about this because there is no jelly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a show. And I think I'd agree with him.
Yeah.
I think it's...
Yeah, I agree.
But then it's clearly like that sort of entertainment Hollywood thing where you force a common phrase onto something so that the show works.
Yeah.
Like, we see it quite a lot. But Bojack does something really clever here where Mr. Peanut Butter goes, it's wordplay. And Bojack has a statement and then he goes, what's he goes? I'll write it down. Can you remember it?
I know what you're saying, because he says, he comes back at him and says something, he says, now that's wordplay. Like, he gives him an actual good example of wordplay.
He could be working harder. Yeah, basically, he makes, actually, I think, quite a quick-witted joke that does involve wordplay, which I think shows his wit, and it shows a bit of his intelligence that he can think about things like this on the spot and turn phrases around.
I think with a couple of interactions that I've seen between Bojack and Mr. Peanut Butter, I think Bojack falls back on his intelligence a lot when it comes to Mr. Peanut Butter, because Mr. Peanut Butter, at least on the surface, has everything else. Like, he's younger, he's currently more successful, he's got the girl that Bojack has got his eyes on. Mr. Peanut Butter seems like a more fun guy to be around. So the one thing that Bojack seems to have over him is intelligence. So I think he at least in the few scenes that I've seen them together, he tries to emphasize that.
Todd comes onto the scene and Todd has the last taste of strudel.
Yeah.
And Bojack goes, now my day is ruined. Yeah. And I think this is actually quite nice little reference to how everybody else is getting on with life. Mm-hmm. And Bojack doesn't have a taste of strudel, but also how such a little thing can have such an impact on him. There's the smallest obstacle in his day, and it's like, I'm not going to bother now. Mm-hmm. And I think that may be part of his depression. Todd is also involved in some online dating on the sofa.
Yep.
And I think this is actually a joke that wouldn't have happened before COVID, because he's in his tuxedo top, not got the trousers on. No. And I think through COVID, there was a big joke about people not wearing trousers on there. So I think now it's almost like too obvious.
It's even more relevant, I think.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't have had that joke nowadays.
Okay.
I think it's been played out too much that people know it, and it's just too obvious. Yeah. But he seems to be involved in some online dating.
Yeah, he's speaking pretty rough Japanese.
You got it, did you?
Yeah.
On the subtitles it says Japanese.
Yeah. He speaks.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, but his pronunciation's all over the place. Okay. Like it's pretty rough.
Matthew spent some time in Japan.
Yeah.
Teaching English, so that's why I wondered whether you picked it up.
Yeah, no, straight away as soon as he started talking.
What did he say in Japanese?
I can't remember. It's something to do with I, because he starts off the sentence with, it's supposed to say boku, but he says like boko or buku. Like he's talking about himself. I can't remember exactly what he says.
It's just been Aaron's acting, maybe.
No, I think it's. I think it's intentionally, because what's the chances that this guy speaks any Japanese at all? And what he was saying was very simplistic.
Okay.
Very simple sentence, like I am Todd, or I can't remember what he says, but it's something. It's like something something.
Does he say, I'm actually considered very attractive? Something like that. Because I think that's
possibly. I don't know. I don't know. Possibly.
I think he actually says. I think he's supposed to say in the subtitles. It says something like, "In America, I'm actually considered very attractive."
Okay.
Yeah, so Todd's online dating and all the toaster strudels are gone. So Bojack's had enough and he goes to the shop and he sees some muffins and he picks them up and someone comes up to him and says, oh, excuse me, they're actually my muffins. And then Bojack's very bemused by that statement. I think he's put off by like, hang on, these are like, we're in a shop, all these things are for sale, and you're saying these are yours, which I think I'm sort of on his side with, but also that's theoretically where that conversation needed to end.
Yes. Oh, sorry, sir. I didn't realise. I don't want these bins. I'm literally just picked them up because I was curious that they're in the wrong section, and I picked them up to look at them.
Yes.
I didn't realise you put them here. I don't want them. Here you go, sir. Go about your day.
If I do want some, I will go to that section if there's any left. And there probably is some left, so I can have some.
Yeah.
Yes, but this
But Bojack's a dick.
I'm gonna. I think there is some dickishness there, but I also think, again, there's an observation about how something has played out that isn't actually what is happening. Have you seen those videos? I haven't seen them for ages, but there was some pranksters that were going around in supermarkets taking stuff out people's trolleys instead of taking them off the shelves, and it caused like real arguments between people. It's always like a Trigger Happy TV.
Yeah.
Like people went crazy, man.
Yeah.
And yet it is like, okay, you've reserved it for yourself, I suppose, as the best way, but they're not. It's not yours. Legally speaking, it isn't yours, and it's not your property. So now what we're actually talking about is politeness rather than what should happen.
It's what I see this as. I just saw it as a perceived. Bojack's got a perceived slight against him. I liken this to.
Is that because of how, like, the phrase that he said to him? So it just annoyed in what he said.
And I think credit where credit's due here. Okay, so having Neil McBeal, the Navy SEAL, as an actual SEAL, obviously that's on point, right?
It's very on the nose come from what you were saying about last time about Pinky Penguin.
Yes, yeah. But the thing that I love was the posture.
Yes.
Because when he enters the scene, he stood like a seal. And seals, like, if you were going to draw a seal stood up, not swimming, like, the way that their head is shaped, like, the face is on, like, the end of it. So if it stood upright, its face is facing up. And it's got this, like, as soon as he enters the scene, he's got this, like, really pretentious, self-righteous posture because he's literally, like, looking down at you. Like, the way that he's animated is very pretentious. And, like, that's just a byproduct of the fact that he's a seal and that's his anatomy and that's how he would look. But the way that because of that, because of his anatomy and because of the way it is, look, the way that he's presented, as soon as he walks into frame, you're like, this guy looks like a dickhead. The way that he's animated is brilliant. Yeah, like, as soon as the literal representation of him, there's no ambiguity. Like, as soon as he walks on screen, you're like, this guy is, well, the way that he's presented is like, he's full of himself and quite self-righteous.
But it also...
Because he's literally looking down his nose at Bojack. So that instantly creates a tension between the two of them.
Yes. And is that you said that's what Bojack picks up on, do you think?
Yeah, it's just the way that he presents it. It's like, excuse me, sir, those are my muffins kind of thing. That's like, rather than saying, oh, sorry, I put those down there for a second. Do you mind if I take?
So he could have been more polite in that.
Yeah, he's walking in and he's instantly laying claim to these things that he's not actually purchased yet. They're not yours legally. Like, you put them down, any other customer has the right to do that. But if he'd have gone about it a bit more tactfully, and if Bojack wasn't as stubborn and pig-headed as he is, and if Bojack hadn't have had all his toaster strudels eaten in the morning, then he might have been more open to negotiation.
So Bojack also has they have a bit of an argument about whether he had dibs or not, which I think again is a really sort of childish way to look at this argument.
Yeah,
like, I don't mind them. Like it's a really, really childish argument. And I think for a moment Bojack's he says like, I wasn't even bothered about the muffins.
Yeah, I don't even want them.
Like, and he was about to give them back.
There's one bit when he looks at the amount of saturated fat in them, and he's like, these things are probably full of saturated fat, and he looks on the nutrition bar, and he's like, oh, wow, they are full of saturated fat. So
that's just a touch later in the scene where he says, where Neil has this sort of really sort of dark, evil character-like tone, where he says, you're going to regret buying.
Okay, yeah.
Jack's like, what? I'm going to regret it. They've got a lot of saturated fat in.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh God, they have got a lot of saturated fat. Yeah. But yeah, so I think there's a moment where he's going to give the muffins back, and I wanted just to pick that up. I don't know whether it was from the animation, or whether he's like hesitation in something he says.
Okay.
But Neil calls him a pseudo-celebrity.
Oh, yeah.
That really winds it up.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It's the worst button you could push on Bojack in that situation, given how bitter he is about his current life circumstances.
When he gets called a pseudo-celebrity, I think he goes on a bit more of a rant and basically goes off to buy the muffins to annoy Neil even more. And we cut back to his kitchen where he's on the floor and he's eaten all the muffins, and the first thing he says is, oh my God, I regret eating those muffins. So he did regret them, just like the seal told him he was going to.
Yeah.
So again, he's quite rude to Todd here again, where Todd's trying to say about his date that he's been on.
Oh, there's just a bit when he's talking about he wants a framed picture of his mother's maiden name. This little bit with Todd I thought was the funniest bit of the episode, because in the first bit, I don't know, it seems quite innocent, but there is there maybe is a slight undercurrent of there's something else going on here, and you're not quite sure what.
I couldn't, when I rewatched it, I couldn't get it. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was either. And this is the point where he goes, I'm trying to get out there. What was it, like a 6-hour present or something, like 6-hour anniversry, something really stupid.
Yeah.
And she wants a picture of his mother's, a framed picture of his mother's.
Yeah, he said, I've never met a girl that's so interested in American bank
racing.
Yeah.
So now we know she's trying to con him.
Yeah.
But he seems oblivious like that.
That's the first bit, like, he twigs and it's like, oh yeah. But then it's when he says she wants a picture of my mother's maiden name or something. I was like, I like that.
But also he seems quite smitten by her.
Okay, yeah.
And
maybe that's why. Maybe he doesn't realise he's being conned.
Oh no, I don't think he does.
Because he's so attracted to it.
But Bojack doesn't want anything to do with that conversation.
No,
which is again that playing into his we'll call it his dickishness.
Yeah.
And I think this is the bit where I was like, you're pushing Bojack a bit far here. But he clearly he doesn't just put up with this guy; he disdains him.
I think he's just kind of irrelevant to him.
Yeah, but why let him in your house then?
Company.
Okay, yeah.
It's like people leave the radio on for animals when they leave the house to keep
background noise.
Yeah. But in keeping with the first episode, I think for a pure entertainment perspective, I liked Todd's subplot in the first episode with him having to run this party for these for this cartel guys. I thought that was a wild tangent, and again, Todd's coming out of left field with this wild subplot tangent of being conned by some Japanese scam system. And I'm enjoying Todd's subplots more than the main theme, at least in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I suppose the only thing that puts me off is that they are quite wacky, and at this stage I didn't really like how wacky they were, but they do grow. They've grown on me. So I liked Todd a lot at the start, like you.
Yeah.
And then I went off him a bit.
Okay.
And then as I watched it, I've grown into him again. Yeah. But I think I remember at this point I was like, he just seems fun.
I think that's what I like about you, because it's unexpected.
Yeah.
It's like you don't know what wacky thing he's going to be doing. At least going forward, that's what it seems like it's going to be.
Again, with all of the seriousness of Bojack's character.
Yeah. It's a counter to that, yeah.
So Diane's there with Bojack as well in the kitchen, and they both go into his office to start writing his book. And this is where Diane asks him, what was your childhood like? Which I think leads us into the first really dark, the first dark scene of Bojack Horseman,
okay,
where we see his childhood and his parents are bickering. They clearly hate each other, and they're saying about how they should have got an abortion. Or he's saying like, oh, if my secretary had had an abortion, maybe I would have been married to her as well, or something like that. And then it zooms out a bit, and Bojack's just sitting there. So his parents are bickering about this, and he's having to listen to it as a young child. The mum's cooking her an omelette for the father, and it's done really badly. And he's like, oh, can I have an omelette as well, Mum? And she's like, well, it is your birthday. Like, there's so much, like, it just seems awful.
Yeah.
They do it in quite an interesting way as well, because the music at the start of the scene is really light-hearted and comical. And it really sort of it's the same sort of music that they have in the sitcoms when it's like, oh, everything's okay and everything's rosy, and that they're using it to emphasize how, I know it's a cartoon and it's not actually real, but this is perceived as a real scene that Bojack's remembering, and it just seems so completely unreal. But I like it.
Okay.
I think it's funny.
Yeah.
It's the dark humour that makes Bojack Horseman. What did you think about it?
I think saw it coming a mile off. No, that's wrong to say. I didn't see it coming. It didn't surprise me
that you had a terrible childhood.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
Given like, I don't know. I think there was a lot leading up to this point. And again, I'll say the same thing that I said from the first episode. All the flashback scenes that I've seen so far are so just on the nose. There's no subtlety in them at all. There seems, at least in the first two episodes, there seems to be this constant theme of, in the main story, in the present day, there is a lot of subtlety and nuance to the character interactions and to the story. But in every single flashback scene that I've seen, when it's explaining something, when we've got some kind of exposition, it's just so, there's no subtlety there at all. It's just so in your face.
I do think this scene is different than the ones in the first episode, though.
How?
That's what I was trying to think, and I don't know.
It might be darker, but the way that the content is delivered is the same.
Maybe that's what I appreciate. The flashbacks that we didn't like in the first episode were very just an exaggeration of what we already knew. Whereas I don't think although you might get the feeling that yes, he might have had a bad childhood, and that could be something. We've not been told it.
Yeah, no,
this is a new bit of information.
I'm not saying my issue is with the actual content of it. I'm saying the way that it's delivered.
Okay,
it's like in the first episode, Bojack gets sexual gratification from watching his previous performances on this show. There's no more clearer demonstration of self-aggrandizement than that. This one, we've got our first glimpse into Bojack's childhood, and we get that it's been implied that he had a bad childhood. Okay. And the very first scene is his parents talking about the potential of having an abortion with Bojack in the room, and then him being allowed to have an omelette because it's his birthday. Like, that's so just, it doesn't get more.
You've had a terrible childhood.
Full on, yeah. Yeah, it might have changed going forwards, but every flashback scene is just so, there's no subtlety in them at all.
I think this one, I enjoyed this one more because of it being dark comedy.
Okay.
And I like dark comedy like that.
Okay.
This is the bit that I'm not sure about, where we come back into the room and Diane questions what he was doing, and she was like, oh, you just when I asked you what your childhood was like, and you went blank for 5 minutes and just like sat there. I don't know how I feel. I think at first I liked it, but the more I watch it, I just feel like it doesn't really add anything.
No.
To acknowledge that he's not been talking for 5 minutes, where he's been remembering this scene, I think it's just like, yeah, I don't think that's the bit that I've got a bit of a problem with. I don't think it's needed.
Agreed.
So this is the bit where Bojack gets the call from Princess Caroline, and it's actually Princess Caroline's assistant.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, you need Princess Caroline really needs to talk to you."
Yeah, I'll see if she's available.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll see if she's available.
Yeah.
And goes on to the little jingle. She's telling Bojack to watch the TV, watch this news channel, because they're talking about him.
He says, no, she says, "Are you watching MSNBC?" He says something like, well, I didn't fall over and accidentally turn on MSNBC, so there's no other reason why I would be watching MSNBC. And obviously we don't know about American TV or news, but what I do know about it is it does seem to be very partisan. The media is either left-wing media or right-wing media, and there's very little nuance or bipartisan reporting.
Yeah, there's definitely a joke here about Bojack feeling too. I think I wrote, he's very pretentious about not watching it.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's really like, oh, why would I bother with
I don't know if MSNBC is considered like left wing or right wing, and I don't think it really matters. It's just like you said, it's just showing that he's very opinionated, and he's like, why would I watch that?
Yes,
kind of
but as soon as also MSNBC is in the C, not the letter C, it's SEA.
Okay.
Because also the news presenter's a whale.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So again,
I didn't notice.
No, it's you only see it when you're looking at small detail.
Yeah. No, I only. Yeah. Okay. I didn't see that.
I'm trying not to point them out, Matthew.
No, it's good.
Yeah. Because these are the actually.
Well, MSNBC is an actual.
It is
station, I believe, in America. So yeah.
So he's very excited that they're talking about him.
Okay.
He's oblivious to the fact
that
this situation that happened moments earlier is now going to be on the news. So he's really excited. And I don't know why he's excited, because he's not been in entertainment for 18 years. So I don't know why anyone would have anything good to say about you.
But it means that he's relevant, at least in that short period of time. Yeah. I think does he even say in part of this episode when he's talking to Diane later, and he says, "Let's get this book finished so that people will start caring about me again," or something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's always on a quest for public adoration and public validation. So if he's on TV in any way, shape, or form, then
he's going
to be happy about it.
And yes, he's even still excited when he sees the seal, when he sees Neil.
Yeah.
He's like, "Let this guy."
Yeah.
He thinks like this guy's done something crazy about something else. He still can't put it together that he's going to be in a bad light. So yeah, this is when we get introduced to him as the seal is a Navy SEAL, which again, it all ties in. It's a really interesting sort of triple threat of the job, the animal, and the character all sort of work really well. I think that's what you were saying in the last podcast about this probably being a better example of the anamorphic sort of situation that this show presents.
Yeah. As soon as he said he's a Navy SEAL, like I didn't say it out loud, but in my brain I was like, of course he's a Navy SEAL. Like, it all just came together. Yeah. Also, while we're on the subject of the animals in this scene, the presenter of the news show also has the same posture as the seal.
Okay.
So he's got, because of the way that whales are, like he's looking upright. So again, it's like he's looking down on you. Like he's got his chin up, and he's like looks really self-righteous and pretentious. This news,
and that is a news.
Yeah, and you've got these two guys both on screen. You're presented with this whale and this seal that are both like literally looking down on you.
So Bojack's seeing a lot of confrontation straight away. And it maybe wants to defend himself. You can see why anyone would want to defend themselves when they're presented with confrontation. So the news anchor Tom Jumbo Grumbo
Okay.
is his name.
Okay.
And Neil are talking about this situation and how awful Bojack is. And then when he introduces Bojack, they use the picture of him sneezing.
Yeah. And he's like, why does he always use the sneezing picture?
Which is an awful picture, and again just highlights how the news is going to use anything they can to present the angle that they want to. Like, they're not trying to show he's a nice person. Like, it's an awful picture. So yes, we get a really strong rhetoric from the news anchor Tom that Bojack has wronged the troops. So now the news channel, the media they've been highlighted to a little bit of an issue by this Navy SEAL that's been like, I don't think it's fair that this has happened. And they've tried to spin it in the way that gets the most attention and is going to please the most people. Like, it's not actually about the news. It's about it's about the angle that they can make on it.
Yes.
They really lean into this fact that Bojack isn't just wronging this individual person. He's now wronging all of the troops and doing a whole disservice to everybody that's ever served.
Yeah, this is another theme that's even more relevant now than it's ever been. Like, obviously, the media going back forever has always relied on outrage. That's newspapers that have literally built their reputation on fostering outrage in society. But even more now in 2024, like, in the world of like YouTube thumbnails, where they specifically like test thumbnails to see which has the most engagement, because which one causes the most outrage or engagement, be that positive or negative. Like, this is even more relevant now.
Yeah, it's really like it's making a story to inflame people as much as possible.
Yeah.
And Tom goes, there's nothing the least bit funny about stealing a meal from Neil McBeal, the Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. Which is a lovely little bit of alliteration, which works. Well, is it alliteration? I don't know. It is. Yeah, it works really well and has a nice comedic element, even though he's being very serious about it. Yeah. And also he gets quite angry and blows some water out of his nice blow hole. So Bojack's getting quite wound up by this segment that's on him on the news, and he asks Diane if he should call up the show and set the line straight. Diane starts saying, I think you're just going to inflame the situation, this and this. And it turns out while she's been saying that, Bojack's called up and ignored
he's
it.
already
She's saying she's on the line.
Yeah. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, it was a nice joke. Again, I think we saw it coming, but it was well done. Yeah. It worked really well. See, that's the sort of joke that works really well to show his narcissism, but isn't on the nose.
Yes.
Like, it just...
Yeah. It was the way that it cut to it as well. Yeah. Because it was Diane... By the time Diane had finished her explanation of why he shouldn't do it, it actually cuts to the news presenter saying, and I believe we've got Bojack on the line right now. It was the way that it was delivered was nice.
Yes. So Bojack and Neil continue to argue about whether they had dibs or not. And Bojack sort of says... He reveals he ate the muffins. Mm-hmm. And this is where he goes, this is actually a line that I really like. And again, he's like his sort of self-awareness in the show, where he goes, I ate all of them. He's really angry at this point because he's really started to get wound up. And he goes, I ate all of them in one sitting because I have no self-control and I hate myself. Yeah. Is that what you want to hear? And I just like that, like, honesty that he's got. Yeah. And he sort of also knows that is the story that they can use. And yeah, there's a lot of self-awareness that Bojack, I think, presents.
Yeah, there's a vulnerable honesty in that line, I think.
Yes, yeah. And this leads to a little to and fro between Neil and Tom, where they talk about, how many muffins in there, and they realise there was 12 muffins.
Yeah, because he's trying to make a big deal of it, that how many muffins there are.
Yeah, they build it up. They're not just like, there's 12 muffins. Yeah. Let's really build the tension in the situation. Yeah. And yeah, towards the end, Bojack is really, really enraged towards the end. And he goes, there's the news story, the mystery of my missing goddamn self-respect. And he hangs up and he's all exhausted from arguing. I just think there's a really I just like how he's so wound up by this argument and it's affected him so much.
Yeah.
And then he goes, I can't remember, he says something, how did you think that went? As well at the end. He's still like, do you think I came off okay?
Yeah.
Who won the argument?
Todd says, well, it went marginally better than the worst case scenario or something like that.
It was better than the worst that could possibly happen.
Yeah.
Like clinging on to any hope for him. So Bojack and Diane go into his office to continue the book that they're writing, which brings us up with another flashback to Bojack bringing his father a Father's Day card, which is it's like a little handmade heart that says love on it or something, and his father accuses him of shoddy craftsmanship. And Bojack said he tried his best, and his father says, no, you didn't. You slacked off and took the easy way out. He said, you can either do things the easy way or the hard way. And he asked Bojack if you were sailing a boat from LA to New York, would he use the canal or he'd go around the Horn? And then Bojack said you'd use the Panama Canal, and he slaps him. And he says, no, you take the Horn the way God intended.
He says it's the gentlemanly way of going round the Horn or something like that.
Again, this is actually another flashback I really like. But I'll hear your opinion on it first.
I like this one. Yeah. It's all right. I think it just showed the absurdity of how ridiculous and stubborn his dad is. The joke about the Horn and the Panama Canal, yeah, I like that because it was so absurd.
It is. I looked into it. The Panama Canal route is 10 days.
Yeah.
Round the Horn is 25 days.
Yes. Yeah.
Like twice as long.
Yeah.
Okay. A father who's not displaying any affection for his child. So he's not. Are we saying he's not a good dad? Well, he's abusive. He slaps the kids, which most people nowadays will say is wrong. He doesn't enjoy this heartfelt, personal, crafted card from his son, which I think most fathers would be like welling up or like, oh my God, this is amazing. Even if you know it's rubbish in your head, but you like the fact that you've gone to the effort is really nice. So I think for me, that's the first bit where I'm like, okay, he's an awful dad. But that's why he's trying to get attention all the time. What do you think about the idea of him giving him a very hard, brutal lesson of life, where if you take the easy way out, you will never get anywhere?
Yeah, but it's not. That's not the point of this. It's not the easy way out. It's there's a difference between making things hard intentionally, rather than just taking the easy way.
Okay.
There's avoiding hard things is not good. I like doing hard things, right? I approve of doing hard things. Yes.
Yeah.
But if there is an easier or more efficient way to do it, you don't choose to do it the hard way.
Okay, and maybe this is where it's one of those sort of. I was thinking a bit recently about how we always hear like quotes or lessons from people, and they're at the extremes, like taking the easy way out is wrong, but then also you hear a quote that says, "Think smart, work smart, not hard." And they're like completely contradictory quotes, but the answer is in the middle. I'm going to leave it with. I'm on the fence to whether I think Bojack's dad might be trying to teach him a hard lesson, but he's definitely a bad dad.
There is also the third option, which is no matter which Bojack would have said, his dad would have said the opposite.
That's a good point.
That he would have been wrong no matter what he said.
Just to sort of prove a point. I want
just to be a dick. Yeah.
Which I think actually thinking about his character might be more appropriate.
Although already in these first two scenes, I do see a lot of Bojack in his father.
Okay. But I think these two scenes in this one, it's a lot more dark comedy.
Yeah.
These are the flashbacks that I like, and the bits that really start to hook me.
Yeah.
So Bojack's clearly not, after the flashback, he's still struggling to open up, and he gets distracted by the muffins. He's now on the show with Neil arguing about this situation. Neil says, I've spent a year in Afghanistan making it safer. And Bojack says, well, you specifically have made America safer. Mm-hmm. And now we get into this second level of this argument, basically. We start to go away from the muffins.
Yeah.
The anchor says to Bojack, surely even you would agree that the troops are heroes. And Bojack says, I don't agree to that. Maybe some of the troops are heroes, but they're not automatically heroes.
Yeah.
And this is the point where...
maybe some of them are jerks.
Yes.
That's the line.
Because a lot of people are already jerks.
Yeah.
And giving a jerk a gun and telling him it's okay to kill people doesn't suddenly turn that jerk into a hero.
Yeah. Which is a very good point.
They're very shocked at this statement that Bojack makes.
Yeah.
Because he's basically saying the troops are jerks.
Well,
he's not, but that's what they take from it.
Yeah.
Again,
that's
taking what you...
That's the key takeaway. This is where this episode has been built into this point where he says maybe some of the troops are jerks, and all they hear is the troops are jerks.
In the same sentence.
Yeah.
This is Bojack's, again for me, this is Bojack's ability to observe the world around him rather than be given the vision of the world from other people.
This was the first moment for me, I think I truly respected Bojack's ability to form his own opinion.
Yes.
Rather than just being pig-headed for the sake of being pig-headed. I think in some ways he is, because I think in every scene that he is, I think he seems to thrive on confrontation in some way, shape or form.
You can have that opinion, but you don't have to stay on the news.
But he presented his argument in a nuanced way, which then took way out of control. Also, I was thinking about this scene as well. And this didn't twig with me straight away, but it was only thinking about it afterwards that, you have all different types of people that join the military from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all different temperaments and demeanours. And there are undoubtedly some heroes, and you have to be very brave and very strong to go and do the things that military and service personnel do. But I think it says a lot about Neil McBeal that he would go to the lengths of going to a TV station to report this very slight. It's like him going to the TV station and going, do you know who I am? I'm a Navy SEAL, and this guy took my muffins from me. Like, that's not a very heroic thing to do.
Yeah. It's crying to mummy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That he's not been able to sort out the situation, and now he's going to tell the future.
And if you do listen to Bojack's argument and you do understand that maybe there are some more heroic people than others in the military, people aren't just automatically become heroes, then with Neil McBeal going to the TV show and grassing on Bojack, that implies that he's actually on the less heroic side of the scale.
Yeah, he's not handled it in the very heroic way.
No, this is something that you hear about in general psychology. Like, if you've dealt with very difficult circumstances, then it's easier for you to not worry about the small stuff.
Okay.
So if Neil McBeal's been serving in Afghanistan for however long, and he's seen active conflict, and he's seen all these horrendous things in war, then not having muffins is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does it seem a little...
No, definitely
blown out of context? I don't know.
I think maybe there's an idea. Well, maybe there's something around how people say they really respect the troops. Mm-hmm. They often feel sidelined or marginalised. Like they sometimes, I hear stuff where they don't feel like they get the support that they feel like they should have done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So this is almost like Neil's sort of it's like I said, that unresolved issue that he's had of some of the things he might have seen or issues he had to deal with out there, and it's almost that post-traumatic stress.
Oh, you think maybe he's not received the enough recognition for what he's done.
But now he's like,
this is his way of getting.
Now this is the last straw.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm going to complain. I'm going to get my recognition for the time I spent there, which is, he's in.
Maybe that's it.
But I think generally, what the really nice point that Bojack is making, which he makes later on as well, is that we're using terminology in a very general way.
Yeah.
To suit whatever need we want to. We say that the troops are heroes, but they're not all heroes.
Yeah, because this comes up again later, doesn't it? Yeah. Someone else gets described as a hero later in the episode, and Bojack's like, well, there's my point. We're just throwing this term hero.
Yeah. And I suppose really the big thing is the media's simplification of issues, where they sort of just demonstrate that the troops are heroes, and that's all that we ever need to say. There can't be any of commentary or any other line. We stick to that because it works.
Again, it comes down to the word nuance.
Yes, yeah.
Like, we live in a world with more and more degrading nuance. Like, we can't have nuance anymore.
Yeah. So Bojack gets a call from Princess Caroline about this interview and about the whole situation, because she's trying to control it and she's trying to look after him. And she says, I'm about to tell you something very important, so I want you to listen carefully. I'm getting another call, so I'm going to have to put you on hold. Mm-hmm. So it's like this sort of, again, Hollywood elite joke that she's not really paying attention, and another thing may take her notice at any point. So a couple of days goes on, and Tom Jumbo Grumbo introduces us to the great Bojack jerk-off, day 3.
Yeah.
So the media have clearly spun this into a massive issue, and it's on
He also recognises that as well when he says, "Really? Is that what we're calling it? Who wrote this?" Like,
he does.
It's a little meta joke.
He does call it out to the person that writes these crazy headlines, and he's not happy with them. But it shows the obsession that the media have taken with a story like this, which it's. But it turns out, I thought it was interesting. It turns out that all they've been doing for this 3 days is looking at the outside of Bojack's house. Like, the story, he hasn't even left, he hasn't said anything.
Yeah. Although, I think going forwards, I might pick my favourite line from each episode.
Is this it now coming?
Yeah.
It's a good line.
When they're interviewing the people protesting against Bojack or whatever, like, they're outside, and I think he's a bear, and he says something like, he's upset because Bojack expressed an honest opinion, and that's the most cowardly thing you can do.
He voiced his opinion even though it was unpopular.
That's it.
And that's the most cowardly thing a person can do.
Yeah. And it's like, how wrong can you be? Like,
and
voicing your opinion when it's unpopular is one of the bravest things you can do.
And I think that is one of my favourite lines of this episode as well. I do think it's, looking back now in more detail, though, I don't think this is actually something someone would say, but I think because of the context,
for sure,
it feels like they're all just like out to get him.
Yeah.
But also, I think you could phrase that in almost a very similar way, where we probably do hear people say, where it's something like, "How dare he voice his opinion?"
Yeah.
And that's very prevalent.
Yes.
Like, if you just tweak that a little bit, it becomes something you hear a lot.
Again, especially living in the cancel culture woke society that we're in currently.
It really emphasises the point that you can't deviate from what everybody else is saying.
Yeah.
There's actually a nice bit in The Simpsons where Homer says, he's talking about the rules of the playground, and he's saying, don't say anything that you don't think anyone else is thinking unless you're absolutely sure that everybody is thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of rules, but it's really like...
Yeah.
It does go a bit back to, I think, sort of herd mentality of it's safer to be in the group. Mm-hmm. So if you're the outlier with the opinion, you're going to get outcast and then not survive because you're not in the group. So I think there is a bit of a natural order to humans that wants to be accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again, there's a nuance of understanding. Well, one, I think there's understanding the time and the place to talk about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Having an emotional argument on TV when you're highly strung,
Mm-hmm.
bound to flip stuff, is not the right place probably.
Yeah.
Whereas a podcast like this might be.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he should have set up a podcast. So we also get a joke here where there's a second reporter reporting on a very important education bill.
And he cuts straight back.
He's like, no, we're going to have to cut you there because Bojack's car is leaving the house.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Again, yeah.
It's just, come on.
On the air.
Yeah, look, we understand. Made a big deal of this. Like, that was too much for me.
So Diane and Todd help Bojack to escape the house in the car. And they make a joke where Diane goes, I know we can take you somewhere where no one will be watching.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to Mr. Peanut Butter's house where he's filming the reality show, and there's like 4 cameras all on his face where he was trying to escape all the cameras.
Although we have the penultimate section of Todd's joke here as well, because it's in the car on the way to Mr. Peanut Butter's. He gets a phone call from his Japanese girlfriend.
Yes.
And this is when we find out that this is the scam.
Yes.
And he goes, oh, you told me that you were really rich. You've only got $80 in your account. And he's like, oh, I thought you meant rich. I'm rich with friends and stuff like this. And he doesn't, like, to say in one of the previous scenes, he was wanting to spend, like, thinking about what to get for their 12-hour anniversary or whatever. Like, he seemed really into it. But then when they break up, I don't know if he still fully understands that it's a scam. The only thing that he's concerned about, which comes up in a scene in a few minutes, is the fact that he's got $80 in his account that he didn't know about.
More than he thought.
Yeah. And I just.
Yeah, there's a nice bit of comedy of this Japanese lady being really annoyed as well that Todd's like led him on, and she seems really put off.
In fact, I didn't think about this until we're speaking about it now, but this also ties into the overall theme of the episode of people only hearing what they want to hear.
Yeah,
like he's gone through this big scam system.
Yeah.
And like he thought he had a girlfriend, and it turns out she's not a girlfriend. And whether he did or didn't ever have a girlfriend, whether he was or wasn't in any kind of like long-term international scam, the only thing that he hears is he's got $80 in his account that he didn't know about.
Well, I was thinking about him also just being, he wasn't seeing her trying to scam him.
Yeah,
he was seeing this sort of romance develop. And equally with her, he was telling her like, "Oh, I'm rich," and she was thinking, "Oh, he's rich with money."
Yeah.
He means he's rich.
In every interaction between these two, they only hear what they want to hear,
and that's exactly what this whole episode's about.
Yeah,
you might be bumping my rating up a bit, actually.
Well, this episode, okay,
because these are things that I thought were taken away, which might actually be adding to it. So, I just want to acknowledge a little bit of animation here where Bojack's talking about this whole argument, and he's got Princess Caroline and Todd in the room, and they're at Mr. Peanut Butter's house. And Bojack goes, "Oh, I don't even care about who was right anymore, although I was definitely right." Mm-hmm. So he's saying, like, I was definitely right. And there's a moment where it is the animation, but Princess Caroline and Todd just do a little look to each other, like to say, you weren't right.
Okay.
But they both, it's a really small thing. Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
It stuck out to me when I was, because obviously this time when I'm going through it, I'm pausing every 10 seconds and writing. And I saw this and I was like, it's a very subtle animation, but they really looked like they were just going like, oh God, he's going to go off on it again. Mm-hmm. And it's just a really nice acknowledgement between them. And this is, I think, when animation is done really well. I mean, it must just be a couple of dots moving, like the dot of the eye just moving from one side to the other to each other. But you read so much into it.
Okay.
And I think it's just done really, really well in that scene. So Princess Caroline thinks that she's got a solution to this whole problem. because it's getting out of hand. And she suggests that Bojack should apologise to Neil and give him a basket of muffins as a sign of respect to the troops. Todd goes off to buy these muffins. No,
she's already bought them, and they're in the cupboard.
Yes,
but he's already eaten them, which I didn't get this.
Well, he has to go and get the muffin. He has to go and get the muffin, so he gets to fail to get the muffin.
No, I mean this bit where Princess Caroline had already bought some.
Yes.
And they were in the cupboard.
Yeah.
And Bojack eats them.
Oh, Bojack's eating. Yeah, he has. Yeah. Sorry.
And I was like, I don't understand this.
It's his his greed, his overconsumption of everything.
But he didn't even want them in the first place. He didn't like them after he'd finished eating them. On reflection, I think it's literally just a vehicle to get Todd's joke to its climax.
Yes.
Hey, I'll go and get them. I've got $80 I didn't know about. Yeah,
but also to get these stale hamburger buns.
Yes.
So they need to disappear.
Yeah. I just thought if I might be missing something here, some little subtext, but the fact that it was like, oh, I've got some muffins so you can apologise, and Bojack's like, oh, I've already eaten them. I was like, what?
Yeah,
I mean it's a bit of a dumb joke unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think it's not a great joke. It's not like a laugh out loud joke or a really clever joke. But I think it's only there to set up the need for Todd.
It's just a vehicle to get us to end Todd's joke.
I do think it also is another example of his depression manifesting itself in overeating or overdrinking or sleeping with lots of people. So I think we do get a lot of it anyway, and unfortunately we are going to get more of it. But he clearly has a problem with immediate self gratification, like he can't control his impulse. So the other thing that Princess Caroline does, which I do need to point out, is she suggests that the apology happens on TV, and Mr. Peanut Butter says, why don't you do it on my reality show? So it turns out this apology is now going to be on a reality show where they invite Neil McBeal down to the show, and they sit them down and they start filming, and Bojack's like, yes, this is all very natural, like it would happen. It's a very set up situation that he's sort of suggesting it is.
Which is reflective of most reality TV shows of the early 2000s, where it's supposed to be entirely spontaneous, but it was clearly had staged elements to it.
Yeah, and again, I think he's calling back to the idea that what we see in entertainment is the opposite of reality. No, reality shows are the opposite of reality, and soap operas are the opposite of reality.
Yeah.
Mr. Peanut Butter's still being very defensive about the show's title.
Yeah.
He's still saying, Bojack's still saying, like, all these people are arguing around Mr. Peanut Butter, and he thinks they're all angry and upset because, he doesn't want them to take it out on the show. Oh. Yes, I don't want to go there yet, to the very end.
No, we've missed my favourite visual gag.
Okay, go on then.
When the doorbell rings.
Yes.
And Mr. Peanut Butter does a dog response. And his ears prick up and he's like, oh, someone's at the door. He gets very excited for a second.
Yeah, it's a really nice animation. It suits his character and the animal, and just works very well.
I think that might be my favourite animal-related character joke in the show so far, from episode 1 and episode 2.
Yeah.
But I do have a soft spot for dogs, so I think...
No, it works really well.
He's really quick as well. Like he snaps in and out of it straight away. He's like, it's almost like he can't.
It's almost like he's a human, but he can't control the dog element.
Yes, yeah. And
then
I thought the animation really well, and it suited Mr. Peanut Butter's character as well.
Yes. He's also feels everybody's trying to take out their anger on his show's title. He's really defensive about his show's title, which again I think shows, like you were saying, he's not understanding what is actually going on.
What people
he's he's maybe a bit stupid.
Yeah.
It feels like he's a bit stupid at this point,
Yes.
where he just doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
So they sit down. So Neil sits down with Bojack after Mr. Peanut Butter's invited him in, and Bojack leans over to get the muffins, and from Todd, and Todd goes, "Oh, they didn't have any, so I got these stale hamburger buns." And at this point, I think Bojack's like, "Oh my god, like this is all going to go wrong," and he basically resolves the situation by developing this speech about how the troops are like the forgotten stale hamburger buns that we actually need. So he's thinking on his feet here, which I think is quite interesting. And again, is pointing out to his sort of like,
well, the thing is,
quick-wittedness that he's able to develop this narrative.
For me, this speech, this little interaction was actually quite interesting because he starts off like fudging it.
Yes.
And he's just like, he's trying to give a legit reason why he's giving him these stale hamburger buns. But then as the interaction between Bojack and Neil progresses, it makes more sense with every statement that he gives.
This speech, he says, after he hands over the stale hamburger buns, he says the words that he knows that Neil and the audience want to hear, but he strongly emphasises for us, the audience, what would you call it? The negative is the best way to say it.
Yes, so, yeah.
So he says, one example is, "I don't think that saying everyone is a hero cheapens the word and disrespects those who we mean to honour by turning real people in political pawns." So there's a second bit to that statement as well. But when he says, "I don't think that," by saying that, he's basically, to Neil and the audience, he's saying, "I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Like, you're right. Okay, let's have this conversation." But we can hear that he does think that.
Yeah.
And is it that sort of thing where, as a kid, you go like, I feel like it's the equivalent of having your fingers crossed underneath the table.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, I'm going to help you out. Yeah. Oh no, I didn't have my fingers.
Yeah.
He's saying it, but he's still maintaining his higher position than everybody else. Okay. Whereas they're all happy. And it's maybe, again, like you were saying with Mr. Peanut Butter, his relationship with that, where he's allowing himself he's keeping himself as the bigger man. Whereas they think they've become the bigger man.
Okay, yeah.
But I think he just wants done with this whole situation.
Yeah.
That's now become the over. That's more, I don't want this negative line.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was saying that they do agree, they actually still don't agree.
Yes, they don't agree, but Bojack's pretending he does agree.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of this whole situation that he's found himself in.
Yeah, no, I misread that situation.
But maybe it's something, I see, this is where I struggled. Did I see it the first time?
Yeah, because I
can't remember whether I did.
I was just hearing his statements and thinking, that's pretty much bang on.
This might
the way that he says it, it's very. Yes. I missed the little.
I think this is also a very good example of Will Arnett's voice acting.
Okay.
And something, I can't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing a video ages ago where Raphael was talking about Will's ability to say the same line in a completely different way each time. And how most of us would just be like, surely there's only one way to read that line.
Okay, yeah.
He could spin it and emphasize it in so many different ways. Okay. They had so many different options to choose from.
Yeah.
And this might be a nice example of this that I didn't realise was there, but is there. There's a very good example later.
Okay.
But credit to Will.
Yeah.
This is also where Bojack has a little jibe at reality TV, where he says, "Furthermore, I do not find it unbelievably appropriate that this conversation is taking place on reality television, a genre that thrives on chopping the complexities of our era into easily digestible chunks of empty catchphrases."
Again, even more relevant in today's society.
Yeah. So this whole speech, I think, is really, when Bojack after giving him the stale hamburger buns, I really like this speech.
Yeah.
it's showing Bojack's level of thinking and his understanding of the world, although the world is trying to tell him something different. And it feels really climactic.
And it summarises most of the themes in the episode as well.
Really, really well. Yeah. But the end of the speech, he gets interrupted by Mr. Peanut Butter getting a bucket stuck on his head.
Yeah.
And this completely derails everybody. Yeah. And everybody's obsessed with this bucket on Mr. Peanut Butter's head.
Yeah. Dumb. I didn't like it.
No.
Far too on the nose.
Okay. He's on the nose.
Hey, look at all these stupid people looking at this stupid thing that this stupid dog is doing. Like, come on, mate. We've already got the message.
I'm trying to think whether after such a deep speed, it's that comic relief.
There is the juxtaposition there, but it's just too clumsy. I think there could have been another way to say, hey, we're all distracted by stupid things, rather than something so ridiculous as a...
But is it because it's so stupid that it's stupid to emphasise the point that that we've only seen the next stupid thing, like a stupid thing that will get our attention?
I think the fact that he's a dog does help, because dogs do get their head stuck in buckets sometimes.
Here's a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about how the bucket got on his head.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I have no reason to think this.
Did he do it on purpose?
Did he do it on purpose?
Yeah.
Or did Princess Caroline do it?
Yeah.
Because she knows how to spin this narrative, and she knows how to control a story.
Maybe, but that's not implied or explained anywhere in the show. So
getting the attention that he wanted on his reality show.
Maybe.
Whether it's a producer, I think there's an interesting fact. I think there's something interesting there that I don't think we'll ever know.
No.
I can tell you now from watching the whole series.
Yeah,
I don't think we know.
Okay.
Someone takes the bucket off his head, and he goes, "Oh, thank you, you're a real hero." Bojack has this, "Oh God, here we go again."
Yeah.
This is exactly what I was talking about. But the lady that pulls the bucket off his head is nicknamed Jelly.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like Mr. Peanut Butter's glorious moment.
No, I did enjoy this. This was a long setup that I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, the long joke.
Because her name's Angela.
Yeah, nothing to do with it.
Yeah, and but Angela Jelly.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It works.
Yeah, even better than I thought.
Yeah.
I think this is an example of this show trying to show us also how everything comes so easy to Mr. Peanut Butter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Bojack seeing all the problems he's just had from this muffin problem, and how that is a completely non-thing, and it's caused so much problems. And Mr. Peanut Butter just stumbles through life being lucky.
Yeah. In a weird way, I'm kind of happy for Mr. Peanut Butter that he got his jelly, though.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's just it's quite a happy moment that he's like, because he says, because they're actually filming as well. Yeah. He's like, "Did we get that?
Yeah.
Tell me we got that."
But this is a very good example of the long joke again.
Yeah.
Like it's set up. It's set up for 5 minutes. It finished 22 minutes.
Yeah. I did enjoy.
Really tight together.
Yeah.
So Bojack's annoyed by this, and he goes to join Diane on the roof.
She'd already explained to me earlier in the episode that she used to go on the roof to get her time, so that's why he knows how to find her on the roof.
Yeah, and Bojack joins Diane on the roof and tells us that everyone just wants to hear what they already believe. No one ever wants to hear the truth.
Yeah, which
summing up,
which is the theme of the whole episode.
Everything that's happened at this show. But again, it's a great insight into Bojack seeing the world for what it is. This is where Diane convinces Bojack to open up, and she basically says, I can write a really good book about where we tell the truth and explore reality. And he says, "You're not going to make me look like an arsehole, are you?" Diane says, "I don't know, are you an arsehole?" But he doesn't answer that question.
Mm-hmm. He just agrees to do the book.
Yeah. Which again, I think is him, like in the last episode where he pauses at the start when he's in the interview about life is I think here he's the writing and, it's just the writing is literally just left on the cliff of him telling us that he's thinking about if he's an arsehole.
Yeah.
And then Bojack finishes the episode by telling us his mother was a drunk who came from money, and his father made him build his own tree house, and he tore it down because he used screws and not nails. What's his phrase?
I love this joke because it was so absurd.
Yeah.
He says something like, he should have used good Christian nails,
yes,
and not,
like he says, Jew screws.
not screws because they're Jewish or something.
Yeah,
Does he describe screws as Jewish nails or something?
Yes. Yeah. It's like they'd be, and again,
It's like, what are you on about?
yeah,
it is.
it's obviously absurd and ridiculous.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's call it there on that episode.
Okay.
So that's the end of the episode. Favourite visual joke. I've got the chicken dropping the egg when Bojack shouts at the beginning of the episode. And like I think I said, there's just something about the sound when it hits the bell when she's shot. I like.
Yeah, no, it's Mr. Peanut Butter and the door going for me.
I'm like, yeah.
Because the other element to that is that they're expecting the door because they've already set up
So he's still, even though he knows
deal's coming. Yeah, he still gets excited, and then it's like a genuine excitement about the door, like an uncontrollable excitement that there's someone at the door.
I also just want to mention one as well that I just remembered where Neil and Bojack are having the argument, and Neil gets really outraged and he starts chirping like a seal.
Okay.
He's like,
yeah.
just like starts, which again is like people just shouting at each other in an argument just for the sake of it. And just noises coming out.
Yeah.
Overall thoughts?
Yeah, I liked it. Much better than the first one, but a lot of the themes in it I like. Having said that, if we're thinking about scoring it, I think, like I said at the start, I think this episode is more relevant now than it was in 2014.
Okay.
Given the themes.
Okay.
So I think I'll probably give it a 7 out of 10 in 2024. But if I'd have watched it in 2014, which I did, and I didn't particularly enjoy it, I would have given it a lower score because I don't think the themes are still relevant, but because the themes are more relevant now, I think I'm inflating the score because it's, resonates more.
No, you can't base something on, you have to base it on that.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. But if you asked me in 2014, after watching it, I probably would have given it a lower score because a lot of the themes might not have resonated as heavily with me as they do now.
My thoughts about the episode are, like I said at the beginning, this was a really big episode for me. I think this is in top 10, and this is the episode where I was like, I'm going to watch this more. Like the first one I think was okay, and I almost imagine I definitely carried on anyway because it was binge watching and watched this episode, and I was like, let's keep on with this show. I really enjoyed it. I've actually written here, I feel like the beginning scene at the bar was a bit of a unnecessary scene.
Okay.
But now you've pointed out to me that it is actually massively on theme and foreshadowing the whole episode. I can't use that point. And actually, I do like it even more now you've pointed that out. I think it was good. It's really important we start to see more of Bojack's childhood. I think makes me empathise a little bit more with him that he's had a bad childhood, but also I like the dark comedy that it gathers. And this is also where we've got a development of Bojack's acknowledgement of the world in a different view, which I think is a really, really important theme. I wrote a score of 8.5, and I'm not sure I was going to change that to a 9 after our conversation.
Are we doing 0.5s?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could have done a 0.5.
Okay.
Why would you have done a 7.5?
I've done a 6.5.
Oh, would you? No, you can do point. If that's what you would have done, but you rounded it up.
Yeah.
I'll change it to a 6.5 for you.
No. Stick with 7. Is it? Yeah, 7's okay. Yeah.
Okay. 7's final answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 8.5 because it was very good, but I think there's still better episodes.
Okay.
So at the time, I probably would have said this as a 9 or a 10 after the first episode, but now I'm basing it on the rest of the episode, unfortunately. IMDb gave it it's got an average for 7.6. In the next episode, we will be discussing Series 1, Episode 3, Prickly Muffin. Thank you for listening.